Another one in the bank, lads. How's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. How you guys doing?
Processing. There's a lot that we covered today.
Yeah.
That was a deep one, man.
Yeah, I think it's normally it's processing is always the operative word, right? Because we've sometimes the audience may not be aware that we've literally come out of a private session with the men, and the topic on today was speaking the truth, and we haven't had any break or water break or bathroom break. So what Viraj is saying is literally right. It's a processing, and we've just come on Facebook Live. But that's how we like to do it, just to keep it fresh and raw, and the momentum carrying on. And I think it was a powerful topic, right? Speaking your truth. Like, what does that even mean? Like if you write it down on a piece of paper, speaking your truth. Like, does it mean do you lie in life? Are you telling the truth? What does it mean? Are you living your own truth? Are you living other people's truth? There were so many different facets and dimensions of the conversation that as we were unpacking it, we realized that it's a powerful statement and narrative that we should ask ourselves, right? Time to time, and pause and reflect that, are we actually speaking our truth? And as the progression of the conversation unpacked with the men, we all agreed that it's not just speaking your truth. Are you actually living your truth? And that's where the depth of the conversation really kind of unfolded itself. So I don't know what you guys picked up from that, but there's so much that I've made a few notes here, but there was so much that we're talking about. And just to sort of set the scene with the audience, first of all, hi to everyone watching, whether you're watching on replay, #replay, or whether you're watching live. Welcome to all the ladies and gents watching. We've missed actually a few Facebooks, haven't we? We've had our own internal challenges with logistics, but it's good to be back. It's definitely good to be back. So I think the different examples of some of the men that were sharing their truth is that it's easier said than done. And what I mean by that is that we tend to put a facade on, don't we? What I mean by, so we're not necessarily the same people in our careers or our businesses. I guess mainly in careers, right? We tend to put a mask on because it's a job, it's a job, and we feel that there's a fear and expectation of what others might think, and it might be detrimental to my career if I speak up, for example, to my boss or my manager, my MD, or just colleagues, right? So I think that dimension was definitely there and still is there about speaking your truth. But then also, if you're not doing that, then you're living a lie. Now, I'm taking it quite literal, and we might get into a bit of a healthy debate with the audience and even with each other. But for me, it's that binary, right? Like, if you can't be who you are around the people you are around, with, and they're around you, then who are you? As one of the men said, right? Like, literally, who are you? So if you can't speak your truth, and I have to be really honest, like, if you asked me this 10 years ago, would I have spoken my truth to the degree that I have now in a public domain? The answer is no. But would I have spoken my truth to a degree? It'd always be yes, because I've always been that person that kind of says what is on his mind, and sometimes it's got me in trouble and sometimes it hasn't, but I'll take the good and the bad because it's lived experience, right? As one of the guys said, it's a data point. So if you don't speak your truth, then what are you doing? Like, literally, like you're living a lie, right? So whether it's with your family, whether it's in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, whether it's basically in your career or business, or whether it's with us guys, right, that we were just in, and I think Presh, you can vouch for that. We just the word lie wouldn't even come into it, right? Because we're just so liberal, we're so used to each other that we just tell each other stuff that we wouldn't even tell anybody else in our lives, right? Or be even our partners. So it's just a liberating feeling that we have that space. But then if you take that, why is it only in that space? Like, why can't we speak our truth, whether it's on social media, whether it's on, and that's probably a massively great example, right? Social media, because that's the most difficult place to sometimes speak your truth, because there's expectations of others and being judged. So I think for me, it's just a fascinating topic. I can't remember who suggested it, but thank you to whoever suggested the topic. But yeah, I'll let you guys unpack in terms of what your perspective was in terms of speaking the truth.
Well, the interesting part there was the different facets of life. So how we talk about career and job. For me, that seems quite boundaried and guarded, where in the personal life, you've got nourishing conditions where you've got good friends, like for argument's sake, this group, you can explore without judgment. So you can be quite truthful. And if you don't like something, you can take yourself out of the situation or the scenario. So that's quite a, it's quite a uplifting thing, isn't it? So you can make these choices. Whereas maybe at work, you feel guarded because you need the paycheck, you need the job, you've got other commitments. So then you might not be as authentic. So then are you living your truth or not?
Mm-hmm.
That's something I took out of the meeting.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point, and there is some sensitivity around that, let's be honest, because depending on the job you have and the manager he or she you have and the colleagues, and essentially what I'm getting at is the support system. If the support system doesn't exist, then you're obviously going to be a lot more apprehensive, right, about speaking your truth at work, because it could be detrimental to your role, which then could be detrimental to you, you know, paying your bills and supporting your family, etc. So I think there's obviously a time and place for everything, but there's also probably a realization that everyone has that there's a bottling of emotions, right? So the longer you bottle it up, then you crave spaces like this, right? Or people or friends to say, oh, but who can I speak my truth with? Or when can I speak my truth with, right? So it's that balancing act, isn't it?
I suppose in the corporate or the business world, there's repercussions, isn't there? And are you willing to have those conversations, those difficult interactions with, say, boss, for example? Is it worth it?
I think there's repercussions, and in the same sentence, my personal opinion, and I'm happy to take both of yours and any of the audiences, there's opportunities. Because repercussions is something that may not even happen, right? It's coming from a statement of fear, which might be valid, but then the opportunity and byproduct of having that conversation might open up doors and might change people's mindsets at work. And if they don't, then it's a reaffirmation that actually you're probably better off in another role or in another job, if that makes sense. So repercussions, yeah, for sure, but also opportunities as well.
See, the way you reframe that there has just like mind blown me, because you've taken it from, say, something I said then, which could be quite negative, repercussion, negative, what's going to happen, to reframe that to say, right, what's the good that can come out of this?
I only say that, Krish, because I shared something, you know, in the chat before. I've been through 15 redundancies. I've survived 10, and I got paid out 5 times. And the times I got paid out 5 times, I spoke my truth every single time. And I was the kind of the lone wolf or the black sheep, but I wouldn't change it any other way, because if I didn't speak up, then I'm not living my truth, right? And I'm being subjugated to doing work that, not the work itself, but the communication behind it, that's a lie, right? So whether that's someone taking credit for what I've done, or bureaucracy, or whatever it is, right? So I think I'm glad I spoke my truth, but the repercussions of speaking my truth was that 3 out of the 5, I was sort of managed out, but I protected myself, if that makes sense, by being having the tool sets around me. So the first time you get hit, you get burnt. Second time you think, okay, let's wake up. I'm going to get redundancy cover. For those of you out there who don't know about that, get redundancy cover, because I'm not going to go too much into that, but advice scenario. But you learn, you adapt, you evolve, right? And you start to get, through lived experience, all these data points of decision-making trees. They're thinking, right, I'm going to speak my truth, because there were repercussions, but there was massive opportunity and upside, because I've entered a new market. I'm mixing with a new crowd, new people. I'm learning new skill sets and tools, and you're constantly acquiring. And life is about knowledge and acquisition of knowledge, and also sharing of knowledge, right? So I think for me, it always be the same repercussions, but also the opportunities. And then it's like, what mindset are you in? Based on your personal experience, obviously.
Your visions are ultimately bigger there. Regardless of what happened, you're going to speak your truth, and that will take you onto the right path in those experiences.
Yeah, I think I'll be really honest with you. Like, you know, as kids and as children, we've obviously all, and even as adults, we've all told lies. Let's be honest, right? But on the face of it, as you get wiser, not necessarily through age, I think that's a bit of a fallacy. I think you know, wisdom is not synonymous with age. Some of the stuff that young children have taught me in volunteering at the temple is mind-blowing, like a 5-6-year-old, what they would say. It's just mind-blowing. But I think through lived experience, if you don't choose the moment now to sort of always speak your truth, then you're living another person's truth, which ultimately is your lie. So
Wow.
how can that possibly sit right with yourself, right? If you look yourself in the mirror.
Silence.
It's an interesting one because it's they're speaking your truth, and then there's also being reckless with it as well. So I think there's a balance. I think that there has to be a place where everyone comes from a place of authenticity, but then is also responsible for the outcome that can have as well. Because it's one thing to say something, and if, let's say, if it adversely affects someone, then you've got to own the impact of that as well. So it's one of those where I feel a lot of time people talk in riddles and stories, and you're not really sure what's going on. Whereas at the same time, actually speaking your truth is a lot more congruent, a lot more can happen, a lot more can be created, even if it causes like an initial breakdown in communication. But that's where you can grow from. Whereas when you're always tiptoeing around and treading on eggshells, how much can one really grow or get the information really that they're looking for?
Yeah, like one of the, and I agree with you, like one of the examples, you know, one of the guys shared is the scenario about you know, friendships, etc., and whatever. And I think if you can't be honest, and me as well, and I can share some personal examples, and I'm happy to share because everyone knows I'm just raw when it comes to sharing stuff. But if you can't be honest with your friends, they're not your friends, period. Like hello, wake up, guys. Like whoever's like, if you cannot be honest with your friends, they're not your friends, period. Don't care what you say, they're not your friends, period. Right? Because, you know, friendship is something, is a place of solace, right? You go to a friend because you want them to, him or her, to listen to you, or to have your back, or to use as a sounding board, or whatever it is, right? So I think that honesty has to be there. Like if you can't be honest, then your crowd is not your crowd, if that makes sense. Like one of the other guys was sharing the expectations, you know, of being in banking, and then, you know, keeping up with the Jonases, right? Meaning that, oh, he's got a watch, so I've got to get a watch. He's got a car, so I have to live up to that. And if I don't, it's going to be detrimental to my job. And it got to such a state that, you know, that guy got himself into debt by living other people's expectations and being a product of his own environment. I mean, that's one extreme, but then the same can be applied even with friends, right? Like how many people, let's really be honest with each other. Obviously, we don't need to name them, right? But everyone's got friends who they think they're friends, but they're not really your friends, right? Let's just be honest with you. Then we've got friends who we just know they're fake friends, and we just kind of like, we're just too nice to, like, we keep them on the surface, right? Or we keep them around us, but we don't really like their company. And then we've got friends that, you know what, will just make you cry in a good way of joy, because you think, wow, that was pretty deep. You didn't have to do that, or you didn't have to say that, or I really appreciate you. And there's different categories, right? And it's the same like with everything, and the same applies in your relationship. And the relationship is probably the most heaviest one where you've got to invest in, but also equally your friends. And I think one of the guys shared that if you remove the labels away, which I completely agree with, but it's definitely hard to do. What I mean by labels is if you don't take work as work, you don't take your friends as your friends, and you don't take you in the confinements of these four walls, and you don't choose when you're being truthful to yourself and others in any of these environments, and you just wake up one morning and say, do you know what? I'm going to speak my truth. And if I speak my truth, I'm going to live my truth. And if I live my truth, that means I'm being authentic to me and everyone around me. Therefore, it matters not if it's at work, if it's at business, if it's volunteering, whatever you're doing in social. And that's a liberating feeling. But then one of the other guys shared, which I think was also really, really powerful, is that the byproduct of you doing that, you'll actually empower others around you because you'll
Give
open
people
up
permission
their.
to do the same.
Sorry, say that bit again.
You give people permission to do the same.
Yeah, exactly, because they're like, hang on a minute, she did it, he did it, and that person's experiencing joy, like real joy, happiness, contentment, right? And that was a positive thing, and it's liberating, and it's like a chain reaction, right? Because nobody wants to live a lie. Let's be honest with you, right? Who wants to live a lie? That's a burden that nobody wants to carry. But again, I appreciate different circumstances. It's easier said than done. You can't obviously speak your truth to everyone and every person, but then at least you're not living in ignorance that the people you can speak your truth to are your tribe, right? Surely you want to know who's in your tribe and who's not in your tribe. But yeah, I mean, I just love this topic, but we could probably do a follow-up to this topic, but
yeah. But I think that's the key piece there as well, is that there's one thing speaking it, but there's actually being the embodiment of it. And that's where you're not thinking about it. Yeah, of course, in certain scenarios, you've got to be, responsible, but ultimately, when you try to conform to what you think other people may think, you're not basing it, you're basing it on an interpretation of how it's going to look versus they may not even care anyway. So why are you so stressed about saying X, Y, Z or being X, Y, Z? Whereas actually, if you just own your own swim lane and silo, you're not getting caught up in the crosswind of everything else.
yeah, and we've talked about this loads of times, right? Like the expectations of others is weight you just don't need to carry. Yeah, why would you carry expectations of others, right? Like if somebody said, Real Raj Prayer said, Manoj, you know what? I really value your friendship. I'm going to give you some feedback, or I'm going to signpost you in certain things that you may not have spotted, maybe in your blind side. That's coming from a place of love and care, and with the end result being growth, for example, and that's happily received, right? And that's speaking your truth.
The intentions are pure.
The intention is pure, and if it's then received not in the same light, then it just validates the strength of the relationship. It validates how it was communicated, and it gives clarity of who is your tribe and who isn't your tribe, right? Otherwise, you're living in a sense of ignorance, right? It's like we've all been there. You go out with friends, let's just say, right? I'm going to use the friends thing because I've had so many people who I thought were friends but definitely ain't friends, and I've cut them all out anyway, so they all know who they are in a good way. But if one of them wanted to sort of call me up saying, Manoj, I'm really need your help and all that, I'm not going to say no, but I don't hang around with them. Does that make sense? Because the energy, frequency, and vibration is completely different. Not to say I'm elevated, I'm not, right? It's just like the analogy of radio stations. You like Kiss, I like Magic. There's no right or wrong. That's what it is. It is what it is, right? So I think you have to speak your truth and not be afraid of speaking your truth. And I think in relationships, it's tough, but it's the most liberating thing when you do it. But it's never easy. And I'm like, never easy.
What I'm thinking about is authenticity in this, because when you're talking about relationships, friendships, if you're acting on what you think the other person is thinking or what they think is right, you're never going to be true to yourself. And 9 times out of 10, you're not going to satisfy their need. Is it?
I think it's okay to think about and process what the other person might think, because that could come from either two things, right? An expectation of others on us, or genuine care that I might hurt this person if I say what I'm going to say. So I might have to choose my words carefully, or the narrative, or how I actually communicate it, right? So it depends on what you're saying, who you're saying it, and how you're saying it, right? Because if it comes, as we were just talking about, from a place of growth, then it's 99% going to be, you know, well received, right? Because you can't fake emotion, like you can't fake that the level of care, you know, etc. But if it's coming from a place of spite and pointing fingers and gossip, it's pretty obvious, right?
Yeah, the intention carries a lot of weight and energy, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. I can't see if there's anyone online or if there's any comments, but
No, I mean, I think people are just kind of tuning in and following that as well. So I think we
that's cool.
can't
That's
write
cool.
in on this one. But no, as always, just thank you everyone for sharing and supporting the cause. And you know, do give us some suggestions for future topics to cover. Like nothing has ever been off the table. So whether it's in the replay or in the chat now or DM, send us and we'll start collating as well. So in the next couple of weeks, we're doing a reflection topic as well, which is always a good one, but just kind of checking in with how everyone's doing with the meetings and what's coming with us as well. So yeah, looking forward to picking up from where we leave off in a couple of weeks' time.
Definitely, definitely. And as always, a massive shout out to our sister groups, Reroute. So if there's women out there, then 18 to 35, go check out Reroute. They're a registered charity in the mind, and also mental wealth for women as well. And also massive shout out to the women who keep sharing it with the men, and it's nice to always get new faces as well, because we never know where they come from in the Zoom chat. So it's always nice to get new faces every week. So yeah, stay blessed, everyone. Have a great weekend, whatever you guys are getting up to, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks, same time, same place.
Take care.
Catch you in a bit. Bye.
Bye.